For 48 years, they kept the door locked. Tourists from every corner of the globe have streamed through the gates of Graceland, walking through the jungle room and staring up at the famous stained-glass peacocks. But every single one of them hits the same barrier at the same spot, the staircase. A velvet rope, a polite security guard, and a firmly shut door. The official reason is always the same, out of respect for the family. But for decades, the rumor mill has churned with something darker. What was Elvis Presley hiding up there? When the attic of the king of rock and roll was finally unsealed after nearly half a century, the world expected dusty costumes and old gold records. They did not expect to find him. They did not expect to find the ghost of a man who died long before his heart stopped beating. To understand the shock of what was discovered in 2025, you have to understand the obsession with the forbidden second floor. When Graceland opened to the public in 1982, it became the second most visited home in America, second only to the White House. Yet, the upstairs remained a vault. Lisa Marie Presley, Elvis's only daughter, was adamant that space was frozen in time. It was exactly as it had been on August 16, 1977. Archivists who have been allowed up there, like Angie Marchese, Graceland's vice president of archives and exhibits, have described the scene in haunting detail. It is a place where it looks as if he just got up and left. The last record he ever played is still on the turntable. A styrofoam cup rests on a shelf where he left it. Down the hall is the bathroom where the king collapsed on the toilet, dead at 42. It is a shrine to a sudden, tragic ending. But the attic, the dusty space above those sacred rooms, was a different story. No one went up there. For 48 years, the heat and the silence preserved secrets that not even his closest friends knew existed. Even Elvis himself had a secret staircase installed to move between floors unseen, ensuring that his most private spaces remained exactly that, private. The clues were always there, hidden in plain sight. While the public saw a man drowning in the excess of the 1970s, the rhinestone jumpsuits, the pills, the hamburgers, the gun that shot the television set, those who worked in the mansion noticed the boxes. Long before the official discovery in 2025, archivists knew that the attic contained the mundane debris of a life interrupted. We know from official records that Elvis stored his mother's belongings up there. Gladys Presley had died young in 1958, and Elvis kept her memory under the eaves. His army uniforms from his stint in Germany were folded away in trunks. Baby clothes belonging to Lisa Marie were sealed in drawers. But these were just the obvious items. When the team, authorized by granddaughter Riley Keough, finally climbed the narrow steps, the air was thick not just with dust, but with intention. This was not a junk room. This was an archive. The floorboards were plain wood, the dormer windows covered in blackout curtains. And the first box they opened stopped the room cold. It was labeled in Elvis's own handwriting, with a year that made no sense, after 1977. How can a box labeled after 1977 exist inside a house that was sealed when the owner died in 1977? The tension in the room was suffocating. As the lights flickered on, the team realized this wasn't just storage, it was a psychological map. The boxes were chronological. Tupelo 1945, first recordings, Army Days, Hollywood, Comeback Special, Vegas, and then The Darkness. Inside the boxes were the artifacts of a man preparing for the end. There were Bibles, worn at the edges, with passages about death and salvation underlined in ink. There were recordings. Reel-to-reel tapes that had been baking in the heat for decades, some labeled in his own handwriting with faded song titles and dates. Initially, they expected rehearsal tapes. But as they spooled the first one, the sound that came out wasn't the booming voice of the king. It was a whisper. It was Elvis, alone, singing a raw, unaccompanied version of Unchained Melody. His voice cracked. It was shaky. It wasn't a performance, it was a prayer. They found notes stuffed into the pockets of old leather jackets that read like confessions, "Wear this when you need to disappear." Among the stacks, they found a white jumpsuit embroidered with blue peacock feathers that no one had ever seen publicly, a costume designed for a show that never happened. The tension mounted with every box opened. What else had the king hidden from the world? The emotional breaking point didn't come from the gold records or the movie scripts. It came from the silence. Among the boxes of memorabilia, the archivists found a sealed bag. Inside was a small, battered teddy bear. Sewn and patched by his mother, Gladys, during the depths of poverty in Mississippi. The king of rock and roll, the man who could buy anything in the world, had kept the broken toy of a poor boy who never felt safe. But the most gut-wrenching discovery was the mail. Stacks of it. Fan mail that was never opened. Letters from the 1970s, still sealed. Soldiers thanking him for morale. A letter from a mother begging him to slow down, to take a nap, to stop taking the pills that were killing him. Elvis never saw them. He had hidden them away, unable or unwilling to read the concern of the people who loved him. Then came the tapes that broke the archivists completely. 47 recordings in total, but a specific few captured a man falling apart. One tape chronicled his grief over his mother's death, a wound that never healed. Another expressed frustration and confusion about his relationship with Priscilla. But the most striking tape, recorded just months before his death, revealed Elvis reflecting on fame, isolation, and regret. He spoke about wanting to escape, to disappear. He expressed a deep longing to be a better father to Lisa Marie Presley, a daughter he never fully got to see grow up. In that moment, the narrative flipped. This wasn't the story of a drug-addicted recluse shooting his television. This was the story of a deeply lonely man who knew the ending was approaching, trying to preserve the pieces of his soul before fame swallowed him whole. So, what or who was actually inside the attic? Was it a body? A secret relative? No. The truth is far more terrifying to a celebrity than a conspiracy theory. The truth is that Elvis Presley was an archivist of his own destruction. The attic revealed a man obsessed with time running out. He had saved everything from his past, the army gear, the childhood relics, his high school yearbook filled with notes from classmates who mocked his eccentricities, because he was terrified that the Elvis of the 1970s had lost the plot. He was hiding from the man he had become. The shocking discovery was the realization that Elvis wasn't just a victim of his habits, he was a witness to his own decline. He knew he was sick. He knew he was struggling. And he spent his final years in that upstairs bedroom, listening to records and staring at the ceiling, knowing that the boy from Tupelo had been replaced by a spectacle. The locked attic wasn't a dungeon. It was a museum of grief that he built for himself. He preserved thousands of letters from fans, from industry figures, and from his late mother whose handwriting he kept in pristine condition. Even the architecture of the mansion supported his isolation, a security wall with a one-way mirror on the first-floor landing, security cameras for him to see who was downstairs before allowing them up. The man who commanded the world's largest stages was terrified of the people in his own home. 48 years later, the myth of Elvis Presley is finally complete, but it is not the myth we expected. We always wanted to believe he escaped. We wanted the conspiracy theories to be true, that he didn't die on that toilet, that he walked away into the sunset. But the attic proved he never left. He stayed right there in Memphis, suffocating under the weight of his own crown. The items have since been moved to archives to preserve them, but the feeling of that room remains. Graceland continues to welcome tourists down below, where the shag carpet is bright and the music plays loud. But now we know the truth. Upstairs, in the dust and the heat, the king isn't holding a microphone or riding a horse. He is sitting in the dark, holding a patched teddy bear, waiting for a letter he was too afraid to open. In a strange twist of fate that echoes the attic's lonely hoard, a similar story surfaced from Germany decades after Elvis's death. A fan named Karen Goles, who as an 11-year-old girl had written to Elvis in 1960 promising to marry him, never received a reply. For 39 years, she believed her hero had ignored her. Then, in 1999, the landlady of Elvis's German digs passed away, and in her attic, mislaid and forgotten, was Karen's letter, along with Elvis's reply, a signed photograph and a note wishing her a lot of teddy bears. The letter arrived nearly 4 decades late. It seems the king always answered. The messages just got stuck in the rafters. The door to the Graceland attic is locked again. But now, we all know who is really inside. It is not a ghost. It is not a conspiracy. It is us. It is the weight of a legend that never learned how to be human. And perhaps, somewhere in that dark, quiet space, the king is still waiting for his mail to arrive.